So we are in our second session today. The idea is I will do an introduction. I will share with you some presentation. It will take, I think, around 20 minutes. And the idea is maybe in between, if you have a question, just feel free to ask. But actually, I have an invitation for you before share these images is to thinking which keywords or concepts you use when you talk about your project. And can be 2 words, 3 words, or 1 word. But the idea is in the end of the presentation to talk about that words in specific, like yeah, to really try to go deep and to share which words we use it actually when we talk about our project, or also can be if you think exists a kind of keywords we already surround you. Sometimes some words just appear and maybe you have a word already in mind, so maybe also you can't really share whatever you want actually, but related with one concept, and then we can talk about. Because now we'll make more bigger this image, so I will not see you guys, but you can really just ask in any moment. So I start this presentation again with the same image that last time, La Revolución Desindustrial. As I say, this seminar also is a kind of provocation to thinking how we can imagine a world without this kind of industrial era on us. Like, so La Revolución Desindustrial actually is a kind of question about how we can also see the deindustrialization as an alternative. In the first session, we talked actually how actually it's a catastrophe for some communities when they shut down the industries. Of course, a lot of social problems appears around some sounds when they close the industry. But as I say, personally, I think it's a kind of opportunity to thinking actually how we can make a new life after post-industrial chaos, let's say. So today, actually, we will focus more about words. This presentation is called Cordones Desindustriales. It's a project from 2018 and actually it's ongoing. Again, it's not a personal project. Many people work in this, let's say, network. Mostly people from Latin America and also Spanish speakers. But as I live right now in Turkey, also I opened this project in Istanbul with a specific experience last year. I will share with you some images. But also in Switzerland, also we expand this project because also I have a kind of connection with that country. So also we opened this discussion about words and concepts in art. So today I will show you 5 glossaries, sources. These glossaries are totally different in methodologies, content, even form. So I will really try to share with you not only the theoretical aspect of this, also the anecdotes, and because this project also is very rich about experiments, and they are very different. Cordones Desindustriales refer to a very specific moment in Chile, actually. Cordones Industriales, industrial belts, let's say. Maybe Pancho have another translation for that word, but was a specific period in Chile in the 70s after Salvador Allende became a president. A lot of political issues start to cooking around him, let's say. You know, it's a very long story about the how they trying to destabilize the situation in Chile. And in the really end of the Unidad Popular, during the government of Allende, somehow it started to become more and more chaotical, the political situation, because it was already a problem to administrate, let's say, the country, because international intervention and also the inner political chaos. But in the last years, as I say, in the 70s, the workers start to organize themselves and they start to administrate the different industries around Chile. They start to take somehow control of the machines and the production, and they start to even thinking together as a workers how to produce, but also how to distribute. And exists a beautiful film, The Battle of Chile. Actually, I share the link in the path, and you can see for yourself the interviews by the workers at the time about what is for them organized and what is for them also to what is solidarity in the end, like, but the real solidarity we talk about really workers who take the control of the industry at the time. So somehow I refer to that period with this title, but I add the des in order this prefix in order to connect idea of again to this suspicious, if we can connect again with this kind of solidarity at the time. I know that right now the time is super different, but this name also referred about that period of organization. But the question is at least how we can again organize ourselves in a collective way, but in art. And as I am a suspicious person, I think at least we can share with our words or with our concepts already. Maybe we can share knowledge and ideas and thoughts from our positions and as an artist. Personally, I don't consider myself as an activist, but I know many people who participate in these glossaries are really more connected with social movements. So actually, you will see later that many words from these glossaries come not necessarily from art, but also from yeah, social movements, let's say, knowledge. So I will start now my presentation with the first glossary. The first one, I participate in a collective research. It's called Art and Community. And this project was between visual arts mostly and the state, actually. Like both of us work together and we thinking about how we can really make a kind of program where the state put the money, but the artists, let's say, put the conditions of what have to be this kind of projects connected with the landscape or with the people. I know it's a typical social practice yeah, programs. I was already suspicious at the time, but it was interesting at least to thinking how the state asked to the artists about how we can make a program together. And this project was in Concepcion, in my region, center south of Chile. But when we start to talk about community and art with the state, in some point became very tricky. Like, okay, but what do you mean when you talk about community? Like, okay, which kind of community you expect? Or when we talk about art, which kind of art do you expect to produce? So we say, okay, after somehow let's do a meeting and let's discuss about these words. So, and in order to complicate more the things, we say, let's not just meet artists, let's invite other people like outside art, and every collective, we was four, let's say four artist collectives, and each collective invite other groups, but mostly connected with social movements. So during one session, we eat together, and we make a kind of map of our region, and we start to really add like a lot of words and different realities in different zones. You can see some details. This is typical mapping of the landscape, but with focus in the social political issues there about the industry, with the monoculture, with the problem with the exploitation of the sea, and the coal mine situation, and so on. So in the end, besides to describe what is community and what is art, we make a kind of list of synonyms. So community became a synonym of actions, articulación, self-knowledge, el bien común, quality of life, citizens, and so on and so on. And art also became a different kind of words like exchange, collaboration, transformation, practices, and so on and so on and so on. So somehow we start to expand, let's say, the words, and in the end, the activity was really about that. So we produce a kind of after that meeting, we produce a kind of publications, and inside the publications, we share this kind of experience, and I call this glossary, but actually it's a kind of experiment of related to these two words. But I like to talk about glossaries, actually. The second glossary is called Notas para un Glosario, and it's part of a project. The School of No Work is based in Switzerland, this project by Patricio Hilflot. He's an Argentinian artist, but he lives in Switzerland. And he studied a PhD in Annecy. And in the last year of his PhD, he invited us 10 artists in total from different disciplines, visual art, dance, teatro. And the idea was to spend 1 week in Annecy in a very, I don't know, alpine landscape beside the lake. And the idea was also to enjoy this kind of short residency. So during 7 days, we again eat together, walking around. And the idea was also to exchange concepts connected with the idea of against work or against labor in art. And of course, Patricio have a more political, let's say, point of view about this. But again, the frame was thinking in how art can also discuss about the idea or the conditions of work in this system. So actually, you can see right now a piece. And I want to mention a very small, short anecdote. During the presidency, we just have the idea to show at least we are in this kind of school of no work, because of course the school of no work no exists. It's a kind of platform of thinking. But as we stay in this place for some days, we want to make a banner. And it was quite ugly, actually, the banner. We just paint with chloro, this chemical on a fabric canvas thing. And then the city became a bit crazy, and the school asked to him to take out because somehow they really think we will make a kind of a squad in this small village. So after some days, we have to take out the thing because the people was really scary about our presence there. And the cover of the book actually was this typical alpine landscape, and was really we just stay in the mountains, as I say, and thinking about work. How to imagine a world without work, actually, without labor. The third project, or third glossary, goes during the pandemic. Argentinian collective invites different artists from different countries, from Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Ecuador, and we met again from maybe 1 month, like every week, like 4 hours. And this Argentinian collective is called CRA, Centro Rural de Arte, is focused about art in the countryside. And the original plan was to just share like our projects in a typical Zoom meeting, and everyone prepare a lecture. We share from, I don't know, everyone have like 30 minutes, and we talk about our projects, and mostly of the project was connected about permaculture and ecologies, feminism, and so on and so on. But then in some moment also we start to discuss like, but when you talk about permaculture or about ecology, what do you mean? Like, we know these keywords, a lot of people use it right now in contemporary art, but like let's focus more about which words we use it. So we start to really thinking about, okay, let's clarify some concepts. So in the end, we decide to share a kind of Google Drive, and each of us start to just share keywords again, or words related with our project. But then the game was like, I don't have to describe or make a definition about my words. Someone else can describe what I mean when I talk about these words. So became a kind of creative writing. Like I all the time, of course, I use the word the industrialization, also obsolescence, but was another person who make a definition about what is obsolescence, inspired by my research, but of course about what this person thinking about what is obsolescence from their context. So it was a kind of really rich exchange. A lot of words also from we learned new words, like for example ecotone, which I never hear about. And ecotone is like the border between two different habitats in a landscape. So for example, the border of a river with let's say a specific land, that zone is called ecotone, for example. I don't know, like, and they use that word ecotone, but in order to talk about their artistic practice. So also talk about this kind of exchange. And in the end, we produce a video together with all these keywords. And I want to just share you this screenshot about cuerpos. It's mean bodies, actually, but also was again was a kind of question if these words we should write in feminine or in masculine, because which is a very rich discussion right now about that. So cuerpos is the original word, but it's masculine. Let's say los cuerpos. So some people call las cuerpas, which is the feminine version, which is a new invention. Or some people call les cuerpes, but also exists another way to just put X una X, and then became again without gender, let's say. So also was a discussion about that in between. The other glossary, this glossary was again during the pandemic, was in 2020, I guess, 2000, and in 2021 we produced this publication, I guess, and was actually in our collective in GCAS. GCAS Latin America is a kind of network part of this global GCAS, let's say, but with more focus in Latin America, from Mexico to Chile, but also some people are Latin American, but they live in United States or in Europe. And this collective is a kind of also rich in terms of participants. And in 2020 again, or in 2021, maybe also Pancho know more precise about the date. Actually, Pancho invited us to make a kind of seminars, or live seminars. And after the seminars in YouTube, actually you can find it if you're looking for Chicas Latin America. You can find all our all the records. And again, the question was firstly like how we can share this experience, like not just to put a video in YouTube, like also how we can somehow create another stage, another step, and really thinking about how we can share this experience during the seminar. So I propose to make a glossary. This glossary you can download in our website. I can share with you all these links in the path again. And the main, I think, important thing in these glossaries is like, again, we invite like 12 different people from different fields. Some of them are philosophers, artists, writers, and the idea was to share our concept, but in a kind of frame, like everyone have maximum 600 words. They can, this is the capacity, and they have to write a text in that maximum of words. And the style was free. So some of words, some concepts inside these glossaries are written in a form of poem. Some of them are short stories. Some of them are typical academic also definition with even footnotes, but some of them are like a kind of short manifest. So it was different kind of text inside. So this is, let's say, the difference with this glossary. And the last glossary, the Contemporary Art National Institution in Chile invite 5 different artists from different parts of Chile. Chile is a super funny country. It's super long and narrow. And the north of Chile is super different with the south of Chile, actually, because also the landscape is different. The north is desert, and the south is Antarctic. And in the middle, we have a kind of Mediterranean weather, climate. But beside that, also Chile is, or every region is not connected really. Like if you want to go to another region, you have to really cross all of them. Like no exists really the idea of Eastern or Western. It's really about North and South. So again, was the question like why we should do a kind of glossary, because this was the thing. They invite us in order to make a glossary about contemporary art in Chile. But again, we were suspicious, like what is this idea to make a kind of multicultural kind of project, like people from different sides of Chile to talk about that. So we make more complex the situation, and again, we start to really try to like to mix and make a kind of assemblage of words. So somehow again we start to make presentation about our projects. Again we select some keywords, but then we start to make this kind of constellations of words, and in the end we start to make a kind of list of phrases. And right now it's quite crazy because the people who invite us start to try to systematizar, like to put in order all these kind of phrases, and they make a kind of insane diagram in a Google Drive, and they start to analyze all this kind of data, but it's really no sense at all. Like became really a kind of metaphorical kind of phrases. Like so, yeah, it's really a kind of crazy project, and became so complex because institutions say you have 1 year, you have to do this, and in the end we have to just show this glossary. But right now it's 2 years because it's like we don't have any solution about how to show this. We don't know if in the end will be a kind of video or just to share this Google Drive thing or just a list. So it's super fun to work with institutions actually about this. And now we will finish with two experiences. One of them was in Istanbul last year with Nihan Somay. She's an artist from Istanbul. We opened this discussion about glossaries with independent space here. And you can see we use mask actually because it was last year in June. And we have again two sessions actually, and the idea was to translate this list of words, which actually are like 233 words in total in these 5 glossaries. So we translate all of these words in English, and the idea was to translate them in Turkish language, and plus, if it's possible, to add new words from Turkish language to these glossaries. But actually, the idea was really not the focus to make a kind of have to final result. Actually, the idea was really to enjoy and exchange and to make more complex this issue about translation and so on. So in the end, we spend the day just thinking about drinking chai, and also because I proposed to translate in Turkish language, but then I realized because the participants refer about this, like also Turkey is very rich in terms of language. Of course, Turkish language is kind of official, but also here exist other communities like Armenian community, Greek communities, Jewish communities, and so on and so on. Also Farsi. So yeah, again was this kind of for myself this kind of hegemonic idea like exists one language and one nation, which in this case was totally not truth. So that was super interesting. And the last experience was in Switzerland. CERN, the Swiss Artistic Research Network, is a kind of independent group. The participants are academics from different art schools in Switzerland, but they are kind of more experimental. Like they are also, even if they are inside these institutions, they're really looking for thinking and to open more to foreigners these different topics, again, about contemporary art. And they invite me to write a micro review, and I can share also with you the link. And I make about micro review about this Cordones de-industrialize, and I just translate all the words in English, and you can see a list of keywords. And the second experience was more recently. This is inspired by a poet Again with Nihant, we traveled together to Switzerland, and Nihant shared this idea of somatic poetry by Conrad. He's a North American poet. I can share. We will talk more about this poet next week, and he referred about how to think in the performative aspect to write actually. So we did again this idea to a workshop about writing about words and so on, but we make a kind of experiment, also a game, let's say. We traveled from the south of Switzerland to the middle of Switzerland, from Sierre to Hospental. Between them are 3 hours of difference by train. So the game is in each stop you write a word, and these words have to can be anything, let's say. So we give like kind of 10 small piece of papers to each of them. I think there are like around 14 participants. We take the train together, and in each stop we just write a word in the paper, and in the end we in the last stop of the train we collect all these traces. And of course it was super insane, the results. Some words are in, of course, in Swiss German, some of them in Arabic, and Spanish, English, French, Italian, different kind of language. Each participant choose their mother tongue. So somehow became a more, right now this project of glossary became more and more focused in the performative aspect of, let's say, thinking about keywords and concepts. So I will stop to share. Oh, wait 1 second. So yeah, as you see, the project is ongoing, and I don't know. I am really curious. What are you thinking about? Like, sorry if it was too quickly or too like intense, but we have just 1 hour, so that's why I make this kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear what everybody thinks in terms of, it's interesting, this idea of words, right? Because it makes me think obviously of like psychoanalytic practice, these words that come to mind. But also that this connection with like sharing words. And maybe this relates to, you know, we're talking about, you know, with deindustrialization and capitalism and stuff like that, in terms of creating these, like the words operate in this way that isn't so personal in a way. You know, it's more that language is a sort of like chain of signifiers that exists outside of us in relation to other people. So I do like this kind of practice of seeing words in this sort of chain-like way. That it's connected. It's sort of like underscoring that nature of language, that I think that sometimes we can think that words that we say or that we think we have ownership over because we know what we're talking about, or we exist as like whole and complete subjects without this connection to the other. So I really like this idea of like words existing outside of ourselves, or even outside of the scope of our work, that they're kind of coming up unintentionally almost and sort of having a life of their own.
Thanks.
I was also thinking in relation with that, in like this idea of owning a word or words, and the relation that you mentioned with the state in this process, and how it's important in the things that you share, like the process of the writing and the experience of the writing, and how that eventually it's so present in the final words that for an institution it's difficult to own that kind of words, because for the state it's always like the importance of the written word, it's like a constitutional aspect of the machinery of the state, like a constitution or laws or even the speech of a president. Like every word it's has an importance. And in this idea that you are one nation, like you were saying with the translation exercise, like this idea that you of the one, like one thing, one nation, one idea, one language, and how it's so not even difficult the translation, but the problems that we assume that there is an equivalence between words in different language because we isolate the word and the meaning, but the meaning is in relation with the context. So if the context is different, even the meaning it's gonna have a different aspect. So this translation it's really problematic in a rich way, in a more poetical way. And I think that with the relation of this one something that the state is always trying to impose is really really interesting, especially with the performative aspect of the writings that you are presenting, and the collective aspect too, like how in one set of words you can show the diversity of voices, like a collective that in a conversation even you can have all the time an agreement that yeah, we all agree in this. So how you manage that in a set of words that is gonna stay in a way, I think that's really really interesting, really really interesting. Yeah.
Thanks, you're right. Like, yeah, because it's of course. I mean, I know more the Chilean reality, but it's true. Like many social movements, even or people start to put some keywords in the discussion, but somehow these words, of course, institutions just take it and somehow neutralize. It's a kind of trap. For example, in Chile, the word heritage, patrimony, was super important for communities because for them was really to keep something from the past, but it was really in order to talk about, I don't know, the future or put in question the present about. But then the state realized that that word is working when, I don't know, as a keyword. And for example, now when you up after 15 years, now in Chile, for example, if you apply for a cultural project or artistic project, if you mention the word heritage or patrimony, somehow it's like, okay, it's good. It's like you need a kind of grammatical grammar, a grammar, and then of course exists many experiments, also jokes about this, and also I mentioned the words of social practice, and of course we are full of words around, but in the art, let's say you can deal more with this fictional idea, but as Pancho said, for example, Chile have a very, very important political process the last year with the new constitution. And we have a kind of constitution committee who discussed for, I don't know, 10 months. And the last referendum was September 4. And just one word, the oppositions used it in order to destroy all the process. And the word was super problematic because it's the word of plurinationality, actually. And just that word destroy all the thing. Like even if the new constitution was super rich in terms of participation and the conditions of to create a text together. Of course, I have also some critical points about the process, but still the focus about this I want to say is just one word was destroy all the process and the idea of plurinationality. So it's very, my point is very, the word have really a power, actually. Like it's not just a kind of softly thing. It can really transform everything, and especially when it's connected with the political aspect, the political history of that word.
And also, I was thinking in the policing aspect that a word can take, like even if in some point, like certain use of a word or a way to refer to something has a important and relevant origin in how to make visible a lot of issues in society, but how that when it's taken by, I don't know if institution in general or the state or certain groups, it becomes like a tool for being a police of everyone, like, and how that it's extremely dangerous, like in terms of, I don't know, cancel culture or stuff like that, that if you like the danger of being unable to say something that it could be wrong, but there is no possibility of change if you can have the discussion around that issue to change it. Like without discussion, you can change that kind of things. So when everybody is a police of the rest of us, it's really, really complicated because that person that, I don't know, a racist, can say anything, so he can interact, he can change eventually. But there is the other side of the people that receive that words, like how they feel with that and how the communicational aspect of word, it's impossible. And I think that's really complicated.
It is
And I
really
don't know.
interesting. It's because I think what you're doing is really bringing to the fore the nature of language, which we can forget. Because I'm doing a project that involves religious people at the moment, and obviously this makes me think of the Bible and the way people interpret, and they're so certain about their interpretation. But of course, the way it's written from multiple perspectives in this text, the Bible, it's quite interpretative, and people tend to grasp. And you know, the nature of religion, we could say that there are two aspects to it. There's a sort of a spiritual or philosophical dimension, and that maybe religion is a way for people to engage in, at its best, philosophy without having the conditions to do philosophy. But on the other side, it's the sort of totalitarian ideological locking down. And it just, what Pancho was saying, I was really thinking the same thing in terms of how language, instead of seeing language itself as this sort of kaleidoscopic, interpersonal, interpretative feature, which is indicative of the nature of our own subjectivity and perhaps the world itself. The fact that language emerges from contradiction and impossibility, like you're born, you can't communicate. It's only when you can't communicate, you need milk or something, that you have to learn to speak. So language is precisely not lockdownable, but it is something that we try to define. And as you say, there are these words, and it happens, you know, with artistic practice a lot, as you say, if you say this word, then you're going to get the funding, because ideologically at a given moment, everybody believes they know what you're talking about. But of course, there's some sort of subversiveness that you can engage in. And I see this with religion as well. I've got lots of friends who work in religion, but use the language of religion to do something very atheistic. So, but as Pancho says, there's almost this idea that in this age of immense precarity, people think that they aren't religious anymore because, you know, God is dead, and we all believe in science. We don't believe in religion anymore, but we've become much more religious in our adherence to certain terms and ideas, you know, certain uses of language. I would say that the master signifier is no longer in the West democracy. So you don't go to war for imposing democracy, quote unquote, for another country, but I think it's harm. So preventing harm, and then you get this, oh, somebody's offended. This becomes the most important concern when we sort of organize our ideas. But I think what you said, Pancho, about the idea of police, that we've become interpersonal police members instead of, you know, this, but the idea actually, when you think philosophically about language, it kind of undercut, like how language is, if we define what language is, where it comes from, and the nature of language, rather than what we hope it to be often when we become under stress and precarious, which is to become totalitarian and certain about language. Like, language is itself subversive in its very nature. And so to understand that side of language as a way, like this interpersonal connector mechanism that is only possible through lack, that this way that we have become like interpersonal policemen, where we think that we can say, you can't say this, you can't say that, even, okay, you know, but as you say, sometimes people are racist and they shouldn't say certain things. But then in order to indicate that they shouldn't say certain things, there has to be this interpretative nature of, like, the fact that someone is harmed by something and somebody doesn't think it's harmful. That again shows the non-totalitarian, like, dialectic nature of language itself. But we have become, instead of seeing language as a way to connect us, or that we're connected through some kind of like we share difference, or there's something that we share, even if that sharing is a lacking sharing phenomenon, but we've become these sort of, and language is like the platform that the interpersonal policing takes, which is kind of tragic. But so I think, like, what you're doing, and I think it's really important to reflect on language in this way, to remind us of what the actual emancipatory power of language, if we think about it, and it's like what it is really important.
I have a question, Eduardo. Do you think, and in your experience, because thinking on the importance of the process of writing in the practices that you show, when you make the concession for example, a grant or funding, using these keywords that you know that are part of the game of power or the politically correct, you think that that has some influence in the production itself, or you think that it's an isolated gesture just to get the money? Like, I'm just curious on that.
I think, as you say, and maybe this is even before even the language, is you can feel immediately, as you say, when a project is connected or not with the words that they use. Like, I mean, also sometimes also I'm in the other side, like as a jury, and it's very clear when you see like someone really use a keyword, but just, I don't know, because they hear somewhere or without any, I don't know, consistency or density. But I think, as you say, the focus of my, at least for me, is not to be honest, but I really, at least to really find a context of the words we use. Like, and I think it's very clear. And I think contemporary art became very important to talk or explain, but I don't know, looks like in the past was really not like that, or at least that's my impression. Like, this idea of the word can speak for itself, but now you have to really listen the artist and talk, or the curatorial text, and it's the idea of didactic or descriptive. So I think they became more complex, the situation.
It's interesting because, you talk about these like applications and stuff, because there's a side to it where I think it is important to talk about art as a platform to philosophize. But what we have is this commoditization where you have to prove that this has value in some way. So in order to get the grant, you have to show that this work has more value. So you have to explicate it, but you're explicating it. And I think that's interesting, as you say, Pancho, does that explication, when it's along the lines of, because for me, like, art should be ideology critique, basically. That art, there's something transcendent, quote unquote, in the fact that art touches on complexity as such. So you can't really ever properly explicate art, but you can use it as a way to point to the complexities of the world. And that's what I think is so powerful about art. But then we're asked, let's say if you have something in a gallery, to sort of like show to the public that this is worthy in some way, that this, that either this is a work of genius because it does this amazing thing, or that in this tick box exercise, it's going to, and mostly, you know, these grant bodies are sort of, you know, the ideological cover story for capitalism. So it might be something very politically correct where the state is actually tied to corporations and is given doing some sort of state-funded trickle-down economics or corporate socialism, and then it uses art or woke art or politically correct art to sort of cover over the way in which state is tied to capital in the way that we're existing at the moment. And then you have to explicate your project in a subtle way, like you're not conscious, because this is when it's ideology, it's not conscious, right? So most of the time we think, oh no, I'm showing about how women are this and women are special, and you know, we're treating women in a certain way because we're really woke, even though the material conditions are doing the precise opposite of this, and these are the material conditions that the state encourages. But we might think that we're doing it. But then, as Patrick says, I have lots of friends who just like are like, LOL, all I have to do is say these things and I'll get the money and then I'll do the art. But then does that engaging in the saying in some way, even if you consciously think that you're not part of that, by using these terms and these ideas, as you say, like heritage might be one, or I don't know what it is at the moment, it's diversity in the West, or or family abolition or something like that. But then, as you say, like I know some people who've tried to use these things as a very way to undermine, but then maybe they don't get I don't know, maybe it doesn't work.
Yeah, it's a very rich thing. I think it's a very rich topic all the time, because also exists this kind of, as you say, translations, and also the misunderstands also. So it's a very it's many layers. So yeah.
But it's important just to, like, and I guess this is what we're doing with these sessions, it's important to just think about these things and talk about these, because the worst is if we don't even know, we don't even have the capacity to chat, because often what happens is, you know, the class contradiction or the contradictions in capitalism get more and more repressed, like the tech, the fourth industrial revolution. We think like, oh, Uber's an exception because it doesn't look like the same capitalism that we've had before, and then we're in a situation where we're really fucked. So it's really important to, and I appreciate this practice that you're doing of illuminating language in that way, or using language in a way that it's non-totalitarian, that's sort of like taking it out of this ideological context. I think it's really great.
Yeah. Yes, and also looking for, like, that's why I think this seminar, I really appreciate to put in question this in this art department, because I think it's one aspect very important to talk, I think, about. Next session, we will talk also about mostly about creative industries, cultural industries. So next week, next Sunday, will be more focused in that. But beside to finish, I want to ask if someone else have a question or a comment. And
yes, I have a very brief question about the tension in collaborative process, because all the artistic process you were describing, I think, are very complex, because on the one hand you have this urgency to deal with these pressing issues, and on the other hand there is the difficult to embrace them all, and then the other difficult to put them in words, in very particular words, with all this charge we are talking right now. I don't know how you can deal with all these complexities and arrive to a final, it's not a product, but something that you can share with other people. How is this conflicted process?
Yeah, I think that's why I sometimes describe, like, we eat before or we work before. I think it's beside the moment when we really work in the glossaries, it's important also the previous moment, and then the after, or at least this is what is my experience with these 5 glossaries, or with the workshops. I think it's also about to motivate to the people to talk, actually, like to really talk and verbalize what they think and what they feel, because as I say, some words are really connected with, let's say, art, but some words from other fields, and even some words when we make these glossaries are from native language. So then again, it's a question about colonialism, because some words are really connected. I don't know, I remember some artists that are Mapuche people, native people in Chile, and they bring another kind of words, and so and then we have to talk about that issue. So it's really about listen and talking, and also a lot of humor in between. So I think that was the way to make these glossaries, actually. The more aspect of this.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's very cool. Very cool. Shall we wrap it up for today, and then we're meeting next time to talk about cultural industries, which I'm super excited about. I love chatting about that stuff.
Yes. So see you next weekend, and then I think the first Sunday of November is the last meeting, right? Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Super. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.